That's why I hate traditional savings accounts or traditional bank savings accounts. They don't yield you anything. You get no value out of it. The only reason that they want you to have that account at your bank is so they can take your money and invest it for themselves. And then they give you a small little return on that money that you gave them. It's pointless. Look at the yield that you get from your traditional bank savings account. It's pathetic. What's the point of having it in there? Just so it sits there and it doesn't work for you at all. It does nothing for you at all. There's absolutely no point. So learn about Roth IRAs, learn about high yield savings accounts, and learn about personal brokerages. If you like them like I do, if you think it's a good idea like I do, then put your money in there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tickets Towards Success podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, I want to thank you for listening. If you're a returning guest, I want to thank you for listening as well. Here, we dive deep into personal growth, health, fitness, and personal finance, as well as the mindset needed to thrive in all areas of life. I'm your host, Tucker Nunakoven, and thank you again for tuning in to episode 8 of the Tickets Towards Success podcast. And today we're going to talk about something that a lot of people tend to struggle with, and that's saving money when you feel like you don't have any extra to save. So maybe you're living paycheck to paycheck, dealing with rising costs, or just feeling stuck financially. The truth is, saving money isn't just for people with high incomes. It's about strategy, discipline, and making the most of what you have. To be clear, when I say saving, I really mean placing your money in proper accounts that will actually show you value over time. You should not be saving money in a traditional bank savings account. I've talked about this before on my last finance podcast episode. So we're not going to be digging deep into those accounts today in terms of which accounts you should be utilizing to place your money. But like I said, I did make an episode on that, and I believe it was episode 5. And just as a reminder, this is not going to be financial advice today. This is simply my opinion on how you can optimize your spending and savings habits. What you can expect in this episode and what you can expect to learn is why saving money is possible no matter your income, simple but effective strategies to build savings even on a tight budget, the common spending habits that keep people broke, and how small changes can lead to big financial wins. And just as a quick reminder, if you do enjoy this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit from these insights, whether they're into personal finance, health, fitness, or just mindset in general. Please, please, please share this with them, and hopefully they can benefit from what we talk about on this podcast. Like I've said in the past, my goal is to reach as many people as possible this year, so I would greatly appreciate you sharing it with others. So let's jump into the episode. As you all know, if you're returning and if you're new here, I do start off each episode with what I'm working on in my personal life just to relate back to the audience. So I give 3 things that I'm personally working on. The first one for today is balancing my personal life with my work life. And in terms of work life, I mean career, starting the podcast, doing content, such as short form content. I make content on TikTok for the podcast and on a personal page, and I do that on Instagram as well. It's really overwhelming at times, especially just in the first 2 months of the year since starting the podcast and then getting into the short form content. I've done short form content in the past, so I know how challenging and how demanding that can be. But it's something that I really enjoy, and it's something that I really want to do. Unfortunately, I found myself lately in my career at my job worrying a lot about what's going on in my personal life in terms of my relationship, my podcast, my content. So I just need to make sure that I'm balancing that out because I want to succeed in my career. And I also want to succeed in my personal life, and there has to be boundaries set there. So that's the first thing that I'm working on right now. Number 2 is recovery. I've been dealing with an injury. I'll get into that next episode, but I'm really focused on my recovery in terms of fitness, my eating habits, my stretching, mobility, rolling out, sauna, making sure I'm doing active recovery, things like that. Number 3 is short form content creation. So I just started posting again on my personal page some content about a couple weeks ago. So I'm really focused on that, as well as short form content for the podcast, and just organically pushing out content to reach as many people as possible and bring them to this podcast to hopefully grow a community in the future. I also want to say, let me know down in the comments below on this part of each podcast, on what I'm working on personally in my life at the beginning of each episode. Is it helpful? Please answer that down in the comments. Does it relate to you? Is it interesting to hear how I'm trying to relate back to the audience? I'd really like to know your opinion. I feel like it can be repetitive at times, and I'm only giving myself a week to like change what I'm working on. So there's not really much to change. I feel like it can be repetitive, and I might just plan on doing like one episode per quarter. So 4 episodes in a year, just to update everyone on what has happened in those past 3 months, and just to let them know what is going on in my life. And that way I can relate back to everyone listening, but as well not have this like repetitive part at the beginning of each podcast. So let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments and what you'd like to see in future episodes. So let's jump into part 1 of the podcast, and that is number 1, what you need to do in order to save money on a tight budget. The first simple strategy is to track every single dollar. One of the biggest mistakes that we make as people when trying to save money is not knowing where our money is actually going. If you're not tracking your spending, I feel like it's so easy to underestimate how much you're actually spending on things like eating out, subscriptions, or impulse buying, impulse purchases. So how do we fix that? So the first way that we can fix that is to use a simple budgeting spreadsheet or an app or a notebook. You can write this down as well. Write down every expense for 30 days, and I promise you, you will be shocked at what adds up in those 30 days. When I first started budgeting and I tracked everything, I tracked mine in Excel. That's how I started budgeting. I was mind blown by what I was actually spending my money on in terms of miscellaneous items, things that I didn't really need. And now that I do budget, it just really simplifies my spending habits for me. I have everything laid out for me in terms of monthly expenses, and then I have budgets for miscellaneous items or groceries, things like that. The second way to fix how to track every single dollar is cut unnecessary spending. So find those small leaks. Like, do you really need 5 streaming services? Do you really need 20 pairs of shoes when you only wear 1 pair? Unless if you're a collector, I understand that, I suppose. I used to collect shoes as well, so I do understand that to some point. But if you're not able to invest money each month and save, then do you really need to be collecting shoes at this moment in time? Probably not. The third way is to follow the 50-30-20 rule. This is just generalized, so it'd be put 50% towards for your needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings/debt, like debt payoff. But I would go even as far as adjusting these percentages, which can slightly, help you save more. I would switch them to 30% savings and 20% wants, especially if you're really struggling with saving each month and investing. I would do that because you don't need to be spending a lot of money on wants, especially early on. You need to be focusing on those investments and putting your money away to set you up for a better future and to have better financial success. So I would switch that So 50% for needs, 30% for savings/investing, and 20% wants. Now, the fourth way, and this might be a little uncommon because it's something that we have to do. It's something that we have to have, and that's to master the art of grocery shopping. Grocery shopping can be dangerous. I especially know this. I've definitely done this in the past because when it comes to groceries, it's one of the biggest expenses for some people. And it's important to budget and track and know your limits when it comes to grocery shopping. I have struggled in the past with like impulse buying at grocery shopping. You're walking through the aisles, you see stuff, you're like, that looks really good right now. I'm going to buy it. And it ends up being kind of a waste of money because you really didn't need it. It's not in your eating habits, it's not in your eating plan. You really just don't need it. And a good example I have of this would be if anyone shops at Aldi, which I highly recommend, it's my favorite grocery store. Great produce, good meat selection, and just they have everything that you need for the most part. There's some things that they don't have every once in a while, and you have to kind of outsource that maybe to like a Walmart or a Hy-Vee, but they really have everything you want. But they have an aisle there that it's me and my girlfriend's favorite aisle to walk down. We always make sure that we walk down it together because we like to look at it. And that's where they get you. It's this aisle that has just a bunch of random stuff, and it's not groceries. It's like just random stuff. Like it could be workout equipment, it could be kitchen utensils, it could be mugs, it could be blankets and carpet, or not carpet, but like rugs. It can be outdoor stuff. It's really anything you can think of. It just depends on what they have that day. But they get you because they put all this stuff out and it's fairly cheap. And they want you to walk through there and they want you to impulse buy that stuff. It's like a little trapped aisle. It's where it's like you're stuck in this like loop of just going through it and looking at everything. But that can be something that you need to make sure and ask yourself, do I really need this? Yes, it would be nice to have. It would be nice to use, but I don't really need it. So I've had to learn by going through that aisle not to buy a lot of things that I want while going through there. So a good way to master the art of grocery shopping is to make a list and stick to it. Make a list in your notes app on your phone or write it down, take a picture of it and bring it to the grocery store, or you can bring the physical list, whatever works best for you. But make that list and stick to it. Just go to those areas in the grocery store that have everything on that list and just get those items. Number 2, buy in bulk if you can. We shop at Aldi and Costco, and that's really it. I love Costco, one of my favorite stores, especially for meat and produce. I get a lot of fruit there and a lot of meat, like I said. And just buying in bulk really helps because you can get everything at the beginning of the month and then you don't really have to worry about it at all. And that'll help you save a lot of money because usually places like Costco will give you extra in terms of quantity and it'll be at a decently low price. So if you can afford to buy in bulk, or if you have Costco or Sam's Club around you, I would highly recommend doing that. And the third way to master the art of grocery shopping is to avoid name brands. If you're from Iowa, you know about the Walmarts. Well, that's all around, but Hy-Vees, they're just way too expensive to be buying groceries there all the time, especially if you're someone that is around my age or younger. I mean, I have a full-time career, a full-time job, and I still don't shop there because it's pointless. I can pay $2 for something at Aldi or pay $5 for it at Hy-Vee, and there's no quality difference. You should be just buying organic produce or things like that anyways. And it's going to be a lot better from Aldi in terms of price. And like I said, their produce is really good. I've never had an issue with it. So there's no point in shopping at these name brands just because they market it to be better quality. It's really not. So don't fall in that trap. Avoid name brands. And that just ties back the key to all of this. The key to tracking every single dollar for your spending is awareness. Once you know where your money is going, you can start redirecting that towards your savings and your investments. So when you figure out your budget, you figure out where all your money's going, you get strict on your budget, and you really set limits for each category per month. You built your awareness. Now you know exactly what you're going to pay in those categories each month, and you know exactly how much you'll have over based off what you make per month to put into savings and investing. And if you have zero, then you need to tighten up those budgets a little bit and bring down those expenses because there's something off. Your budget should reflect your income per month, and it should be quite a bit lower to make sure that you can. Now, trust me, I understand that there are some people out there that really can't do this. But the point I'm trying to get across is that just be aware of your spending. If you don't have a high income right now, if you're kind of struggling in that category, I get that. I really do. But if you're struggling with your income and you're still not tracking your money, then what are you doing? You should still be tracking it. You should still be looking at what you're spending because you will never know if you can actually invest and save if you're not tracking it. How do you really know that your income is that low? How do you really know what you're spending your money on each month? And I'll tell you this, if you have 8 streaming services and you say, I can't invest, my income is too low. That's bullshit. You don't need those streaming services. Get rid of them. You don't need them. TV is not that important. It really isn't. It doesn't benefit you at all. So get rid of them and look at your budget and then invest that extra money, even if it's $100, even if it's $50, I don't care. Just be aware of your budget. All right, so the second strategy here is to embrace the 24-hour rule for purchases. This is my favorite, super simple strategy that everybody can use when it comes to saving money on a tight budget. We've already talked and discussed impulse buying. It's a budget killer. So before buying anything that isn't a necessity, just wait 24 hours. This pause, it gives you time to decide if it's really worth it. More often than not, you'll realize that you really don't need it. There's going to be times where you realize, yes, I really do need this, and that's fine. But just give yourself that 24 hours to really think about it and see if you actually need it. For me personally, I try to notch this up and do 48 hours, so 2 days. And the only reason that I've done this is probably about a year or 2 ago, I kind of had a problem with impulse buying. And that's risky territory. You don't want to be doing that, and you don't want to be behind on your expenses or anything like that. I've never been in that situation, but I've definitely been close in the past. And this was before I started budgeting and actually tracking my money. I was impulse buying way too much, buying things I didn't need. And I found out about this rule. So I started doing that. And then I decided to bump it up to 48 hours because I feel like I get more clarity, more things happen in 2 days than in one. You maybe lose sight of it, and then you realize that you really don't need that purchase. All right, so let's jump into the third simple strategy for saving money on a tight budget, and that's to cut unnecessary monthly expenses. Talked a little bit about this and how most people don't realize how many small reoccurring expenses that are eating away at their budget each month. It's because they don't track it either. I'm going back to number one every time because it's just the most important. Just freaking track your money. Just track it. But anyways, back to these unnecessary small reoccurring expenses. And how do we take control by eliminating those? We take control by canceling unused subscriptions. For example, I just canceled YouTube TV. Why? Because we don't use it. We did. I used to watch a lot of sports. I really don't anymore. I watched the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. I didn't watch anything after that. Now, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, so that may be part of the reason. If they would have did or had a better year, I probably would have at least watched their games. But they didn't. And I didn't feel the need to sit around for 7 hours on a Sunday and waste my time by watching pointless football games that don't matter. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I didn't watch the playoffs. The only game that I checked in on was the Bills and Chiefs game in the AFC Championship. That was it. So I canceled YouTube TV. I don't watch the NBA, could care less about it. Don't watch MLB that much, unless if the Royals are playing the Yankees, just because I'm a Royals fan and my girlfriend's a Yankees fan. That's the only time that I'll watch the MLB, or I will watch it in the playoffs. I'll watch that maybe a little bit, more than likely just the World Series. But to be honest, I don't need to watch that. I really don't care about watching March Madness this year either. It's just, what's the point? I don't feel like wasting my time. You know, time is very valuable, so I don't feel like wasting that sitting around and watching sports that really don't matter. It doesn't impact my life at all. So that's why I canceled YouTube TV. I figured that was an unused subscription. Some other ones can be like food subscriptions. If you have a food subscription, I am not a big fan on food subscriptions. I get like the ones that ship you pre-made meals. I get some people might need that, but let's be honest, you can cook. You can do it. Unless if you have a huge family and you really have no time, you could cook. Some other food subscriptions could be like the ones for DoorDash or Grubhub, Uber Eats, things like that. Let's get rid of them. If you have like the advanced version or whatever, the plus version, I don't even know what it's called. The only reason I have one, it is the DoorDash subscription. The only reason that I have that is because I have a credit card that gives me that upgrade for like a year or something like that. So that's the only reason I have it, but I hardly ever use DoorDash. I think I've used it twice, maybe, and that was before I really started digging into my diet and things like that. Some other ones could be streaming services like we talked about. And the last one, I hate this one, but I listed it, and it could be gym memberships. If you have a gym membership and you're not using it, for one, I think you should be, and I think you should be going to the gym and actually getting value out of paying that per month. But if you're really not going, you're just wasting your money. And if you don't think you're going to go, if you don't care to go, then get rid of it. That's just a waste of money, just to make yourself feel better by saying you have a gym membership. Get rid of it if you don't use it. Any membership. There's plenty of other ones out there that I didn't name. So look through your budget, look through what you're spending, and get rid of those unused subscriptions. Another way that you can cut unnecessarily monthly expenses is by negotiating your bills. I do not do this, but when I was writing this podcast script, I looked up ways that you can save more money on a tight budget and ways that people have used in the past, and this was one of them. So apparently you can call your phone, internet, or insurance provider and ask for a lower rate. And apparently people had mentioned that you would be surprised at how often they'll actually work for you just so you stay with their company. Like I said, I've never tried this, but it kind of intrigues me. If I want to get my phone, internet, and my insurance down, I might give it a shot and see if it works. Who knows? But that's a second way that you can cut those expenses, unnecessary ones. The third way is switching to cheaper alternatives. So look for lower cost plans or services that fit your needs without extra costs. And like I said, you can shop at cheaper grocery stores, Hy-Vee compared to Aldi, or wherever you may be listening to this to. Go to that. It's not a lower end store, but go to the one that gives you the most value, the most bang for your buck, because why not? Try it out at least. See how their produce is, see how their selection of different items are, selection of different organic and healthy items, especially. That's why I like Aldi as well, because they have a really good selection of organic stuff and actually healthy items. And I think that's really cool of them to do. You can do this with phone plans as well. Obviously, if you're at Verizon and you're paying a little bit too much, you can go to US Cellular. You can go to Mint Mobile if you really want to. When you're looking at your budget and you make that spreadsheet or that list, look at things that you may be able to downgrade and get the same exact outcome or service from. And that's going to give you a lot more value, and that's going to save you a lot of money. And these small cuts, like I said, free up money almost instantly without like drastically changing your lifestyle. It's giving you the same value, same outcome. So why not save a few bucks? The fourth strategy for saving money on a tight budget: adopt the pay yourself first mindset. We talked about this in episode 5 a little bit. I think it's extremely important. And it's also a little bit contradicting to this episode, because we're talking about saving money on a tight budget. So that means that you may not have a lot of money left over after your monthly expenses. But it's still important to pay yourself a little bit first each month. That way you get into that habit of doing it over and over, and it just becomes routine. And then when your income grows, that's when you expand that spending or that investing power. That's where you're able to really start to pay yourself first. And I feel like that's one of the most effective ways to save money, even on a tight budget. And you can also, and I would recommend doing and automating your savings. Again, I mentioned this in episode 5. I do not personally do this. While I do think it's a great idea, I just want to be upfront and honest. I do not do this. I think it's a great idea, but I do not do it. The only reason I don't, and like I said in episode 5, is because I'm constantly reviewing my finances. Honestly, after thinking about it and just recording this episode, I probably should do it. But another big reason that I don't is because sometimes if I have more money than I expected that month, I will put more money into my investments or pay off more of my debt that I may have. So that's why I don't automate it each month, because I might have already filled that next month in the previous one because I had a little bit of extra cash. And that's just comes with me constantly checking it. I've dimmed it down a little bit since episode 5 because I had mentioned that I kind of probably had a little bit of an unhealthy problem with checking my finances so much. And I've dimmed it down a little bit. I'm probably checking it every other day just to like update what I spent and see how much money I am saving that month compared to what I brought in and what my expenses are. But I usually tend to look at that every other day. And I do have to enter in like each of my expenses because I track how much I get cash back from each of my credit cards. So I do have to keep up to date with it pretty frequently. But if you don't want to do that, you can honestly look at it weekly and kind of go from there. But that's going to take a lot of time as well, because you're going to have to put down each of your expenses anyways, just to see how much you've been spending. So every other day, I'd say 2 or 3 days would probably be pretty beneficial. Back to the pay yourself first mindset. We need to remember, in order to do this, you must know exactly how much money you need per month for expenses, because you still have to live. So budget correctly and then decide what amount to automate for savings. That's why I said you could be $50 a month. It could be $25 a month. It doesn't have to be hundreds of dollars each month that you're saving. If you can, great. If you can't, though, just get into that habit of doing it consistently. So how do we do the pay yourself first mindset? Set up auto transfers. Even if it's a low number, it could be $10 a week. Set up an automatic transfer to your savings account. We will talk here in a couple of seconds what kind of accounts I personally like to use in my personal life instead of a traditional savings account. Okay, the second reason, or the second way that you can pay yourself first, is you can use a cash envelope system. Now, this sounds a little weird, but you can physically separate money for different expenses, and that can kind of help you stay on track. Now, it's called the envelope system. So this can be physical cash, or you can do it online. I would recommend doing it online so you don't have physical cash, because physical cash is literally just pointless. It is literally pointless. I would have a certain amount of cash just to keep on hand, but I would not keep a ton of cash, because it's just pointless. It doesn't do anything sitting there. It loses value. You're not getting anything out of it. The way I do it is I do it online. And that's by having multiple high yield savings accounts, or it can be checking accounts. If you're using it for expenses, like maybe your mortgage or your rent or groceries or things like that, I would do it in multiple checking accounts if you can. And then for high yield savings accounts, I would do like savings goals, or maybe travel, like a travel fund or an emergency fund, things like that. Things where the money is going to actually sit there and have a chance to collect interest month after month. That way you're not like taking out constantly for like your mortgage or things like that. That way it has a chance to accumulate some money over time, because taking it in and out constantly doesn't make a lot of sense for it to be in a high yield savings account. The third way to pay yourself first is place money in smart accounts. We just talked a little bit about high yield savings accounts, but placing your money into certain accounts can yield you small amounts of money per month. It's kind of like paying yourself first if you are getting money each month. So by putting your money into smart investment accounts, like a Roth IRA, a high yield savings account, or just a personal brokerage, you are technically paying yourself first, because you are getting a return back each month. Now think about that concept. I'm switching this, right? Because the pay yourself first mindset is really just, when you get paid, you take a sum of money and you put it into an investment account, and that's paying yourself first. I'm saying it's also a way to pay yourself first by putting it into a smart investment account, because in return, you're getting something back that is not like directed from your income that you usually get per month. And I hope that that makes sense, because that, when I think about it in my mind, it makes sense to me. But let me know down in the comments if it does not make sense, and I will try to reiterate it in a short form content video on my Tickets Toward Success TikTok page. I'll try to do that. But I hope that that makes sense, because I think it's very critical for us to put into a Roth high yield savings account, personal brokerage, one of those three to return a yield every single month and to get something out of investing our money. That's why I hate traditional savings accounts or traditional bank savings accounts. They don't yield you anything. You get no value out of it. The only reason that they want you to have that account at your bank is so they can take your money and invest it for themselves. And then they give you a small little return on that money that you gave them. It's pointless. Look at the yield that you get from your traditional bank savings account. It's pathetic. What's the point of having it in there? Just so it sits there and it doesn't work for you at all? It does nothing for you at all? There's absolutely no point. So learn about Roth IRAs, learn about high yield savings accounts, and learn about personal brokerages if you like them like I do. If you think it's a good idea like I do, then put your money in there. That's what I do. I've been researching and learning about personal finance, about these accounts for the past 2 years. And it's just smarter. Why not make your money work for you? Why not? Even if it's a little yield. High yield savings accounts are usually around 4% yield compared to 0.01% in a traditional bank savings account. It's not the biggest yield in a high yield savings account, but it's sure better than what they're offering at your bank. I can guarantee you that. So just make sure that you're learning about personal finance and you're putting your money into smart accounts. And by prioritizing your savings first, before paying your expenses per month, you force yourself to adjust your spending around what is left instead of saving what is left over. Think about that for a sec. You force yourself to adjust your spending around what is left instead of saving whatever is left over. Because more than likely, if you save whatever's left over, you're going to spend it all before you save. And I know some people are going to be like, Tucker, I just can't afford to do that. Yes, you can. $10. $10. You just don't spend $10 on something that you don't need per week. Or hell, even per month. It could be $10 a month. I don't care. Just get started. Adjust your spending around what is left instead of saving whatever's left over. All right. The fifth strategy that I have for today is find creative ways to increase your income. We talked about this a little bit in episode 5 as well. And I don't mean for it to be repetitive. It's a great strategy. Because if you have a tight budget for saving money, more than likely you might not be making enough income. And that's okay. I'm not here to lecture or harp on anyone that may be in that position. I get it. I've been in that position. I understand. But an actionable thing you can do is try to find creative ways to increase it. What are you good at? What is a hobby of yours? Can you make money from doing that? Can you find a way to do that? Are you good at creating content? Can you start creating content and possibly make that into a side hustle? It may take a little bit of time, but can you do that? Why not try? It's going to take a big burden off you if you can find another income avenue. Because sometimes saving money isn't just about cutting expenses, it's about bringing in extra cash. So if you can create cash flow in your personal life, it's going to make a huge difference. And like I said, the more avenues that you can create, the more that you're going to be able to invest and save, and the less you're going to have to worry about investing and saving. So here are some simple ways that you can earn more. You can freelance or side hustle. You can use your skills for part-time gigs online. You can do Fiverr. They have a bunch of different, if you've never been on Fiverr, it's this website where people can go to and they can request a certain service. So for example, for my podcast, I'm thinking about in the future going on Fiverr and hiring a freelancer to create thumbnails for my podcast episodes to go on Spotify and YouTube. I like doing it, but it's just a way for me to maybe pay $5-10 to this freelancer to maybe make me $5 for the next 5 episodes. But that's what people on Fiverr do. There's tons of other things that you can do on there. So if you don't even know what you could do as a freelancer, you can go on Fiverr and then see what a lot of people offer and be like, hey, yeah, maybe I could do that. I've had some experience with that in the past. Maybe I'll try that. And you can sign up and then you can start to build like a little bit of a clientele, things like that. So use your skills for part-time gigs online. Number 2, sell unused items. Declutter and make money by selling things you no longer need. I guarantee you, if you look around your house, there are things that you don't need. So see if you can sell it and get a little bit of money out of it. Because why not? That's an extra way to earn some income. Or you can also make items for people and you can sell them on Facebook Marketplace. You can sell them on Etsy. If maybe that's a hobby of yours, maybe a hobby of yours is sewing. You can sew things and sell them online. The third way that you can try to earn more is by cashback and rewards programs. You can use credit cards and cashback apps strategically to get cash back on all your purchases, to save up for travel, to use your points to purchase different things if you're in need of something. I am heavily into the credit card game, if you will. I really enjoy it. I've learned a lot about it just through my personal finance ventures. And I collect not cash back. Well, I have the option to do cash back, but I collect points through my credit cards in order to save up for travel in the future, stuff like that. And that's why I always track my cash back in my budget. But you can do this, to get some cash back each month. Why not? It's not a lot. They really don't give you a lot, but it's better than nothing. But my rule of thumb, every time I mention credit cards, is just make sure that you're using them wisely and strategically, that you're using them for expenses that you would already have, not using them to purchase things that you would never purchase in the first place with a debit card or with your checking account. Use credit cards wisely. You do not want to fall into that trap of credit card debt. You also need to make sure that you're paying your credit cards off in full every single month, so you're not risking getting into that trap, because that interest is so high. 28% on some of them, could be a little bit lower on some others, could be higher on some others. Just do not use them in a negative or bad way, because it can truly impact your finances and your life and your stress. So don't do that. But they can be a useful tool if you use them wisely. Number 4, like I said, do something with your passions or your hobbies. Think about what you love to do and figure out a way to help/teach others your knowledge in that specific area. And think about how you can use that knowledge that you have to make some money. If you can teach someone about, I don't know, if you can teach someone about health, how can you relay that knowledge to the world? For example, Tucker, what do you do? Well, in my free time, I make this podcast and I post short form content around the same things: health, fitness, finance, and mindset. Why? Because I've had a little bit of experience in it. I've learned a lot about health, fitness, and finance, and just kind of the mindset needed to thrive in those areas, right? It's what I say in the beginning of each podcast episode. Now, I do not know everything. I know a little about a lot. That's what I like to say. And I think that I can bring some value to the people that listen. And I think that I can help some people that may be struggling in those certain areas. So that's a passion and hobby of mine. And that's how I use number 4. And just remember, when you increase your income even slightly, it gives you more breathing room to save without feeling restricted. It's just so important, because if you are struggling with your budget or your lower income, you always feel restricted and like your hands are tied behind your back for investing, because you don't really know what your expenses are going to look like or how much you're going to have for expenses that month. So just finding a little way to make a little bit extra cash, even if it's just $100 a month, is going to do wonders for you. All right, some key takeaways from today's episode, episode 8. Episode 8. I love that. Almost double digits. I'm just excited to get to episode 9. To be honest, it's going to be a great, great episode. I'm recording it tomorrow. I'm pumped for it. But yeah, it's going to be a great one. Anyways, some key takeaways from today's episode, episode 8. Number 1, track your expenses and your spending habits. I'm going to say it over and over and over in every single personal finance podcast episode that I do. Track your expenses and your spending habits. Number 1. Number 2, wait before you buy. 24-hour rule, or do 48 hours like I do. One of the two, doesn't matter, whatever works for you. Do one of those before you either A, impulse buy, or buy something that you don't know if you necessarily need. And honestly, if you do think you need it, I would still wait 24 hours. It's still going to be there. It'll be fine. Number 3, develop multiple streams of income. So I preach this, but Tucker, what do you do to have multiple streams of income? I have my job, which is my main income, my career. I don't make any money from podcast or short form content, anything like that. But what I do throughout the year is I do window cleaning for a few residential clients that I have. Now, this doesn't pay me a lot per year, maybe $2,000. So it's probably a little bit over that. It's probably around $3,000 per year. That's it. It's not a lot. But it is a way for me to have another stream of income each year. I usually do a cleaning for each of my clients in the spring, and then a cleaning for each of my clients in the fall before the winter, because I don't like to do windows in the winter. I used to work for a window company when I was in college, so I bought all of the tools when I left that job and I entered it into my new career. That way I could do some residentials. I went door knocking for a while, just trying to get people to become some clients. That didn't go over so well, but I still do have a few people that I got recommended, because sometimes when I'm out and about, I'll tell people about what I do and then what I used to do, and they'll be like, oh, I'd love for you to come clean my windows. Then that's kind of when I'll go into a sales pitch a little bit and get them on the clientele list. So that's what I do. And that's something super small and super easy. And it's nice to go outside in the spring and fall, clean some windows, get paid. And that's that. But develop multiple streams of income if you can. Just find something. You can do it. Final thoughts from today's episode. No matter your income level, everyone can put together a plan to save money while on a budget and invest a little each month. Does not matter what your income level is. I promise you, if you track your expenses, if you track your money, if you know where your money is going every single month, you can find a little bit of money to save and invest. There's always a little bit of money that you can do that with. So just get into that routine and get into that habit and avoid unnecessary spending. And that is it for today's episode of the Tickets Towards Success podcast. Like I say at the end of every single episode, if this episode resonated with you, whether you're a return listener or a new listener, I would really like to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment. Leave a comment below. And if you're up for it, just share this with someone that you may think will enjoy this content. Like I said at the beginning, and I say at the beginning of every episode, I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. So I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Be sure to follow me on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram for more content like this. I have a Tickets Towards Success Instagram and TikTok, so you can follow me at Tickets Towards Success. Also, be sure to follow my personal Instagram and TikTok where I post more health, fitness. Actually, I only post health and fitness content there, as well as mindset content, I guess. I don't do as much as the finance stuff. But if you'd like to follow that, just at Real Tucker N. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. And don't forget, I do post new episodes every single Monday. And next Monday, we are going to talk about my training plan and mindset for my marathon in 2025. I am pumped for that episode. I have the script almost completed. It's almost completed. I'm about to record it tomorrow. Just need to finish that script, but it's coming along really nicely. And I am so excited to tell everyone that is listening what marathon I will be running. It'll be my first marathon ever. I'm super excited and nervous to do that, but that is going to be next Monday's episode. On March 3rd is when that will come out. So turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode, or just download my podcast for continuous updates. Why not? If you really enjoy listening to this podcast, if you get some value out of it, just download it. That way you're always getting updated when my new videos come out. And remember, everyone, that every step forward grants you another ticket toward achieving your goals. The more tickets that you can collect, the more that you will learn and grow. I will see everyone in the next episode, and thank you for tuning in.